Test. Oh boy. Oh, that's very noticeable. Ba, 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 ba. Peace, 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 peace. Test. Oh boy. Wow. This is what I sound like?
Go over. This one's going to be for Aberration. I'm actually a couple days late on this video because I've been building my brand new PC over the last couple days and I'm using it right now. It's great. But anyway, this is for Aberration, an exclusive creature to the map, only for Ark Survival Ascended, and I think this map's probably going to drop at the very start of next year, although wildcard, we all know. Anyway, yeah, so here's our top 10. Real quick before we actually go through these creatures, I'm going to leave a link down below to this page where you can go and you can basically just vote, but you should probably watch this video first to kind of get a rough grasp as to what each of these creatures actually is. And the way that you actually vote is you need to order your top 10 in, you know, number 1 being your favorite, number 10 being your least favorite. So basically, I mean, if you don't really care about doing it all, you could probably just focus on your top 3 and your bottom 3, but regardless of where you put things, say if this one here's my favorite, I'm going to put this one up at the top. If nobody likes this at all, and I'm like one of the only people that actually votes for this, it gets eliminated. And then this one right here becomes my new number 1. And if I didn't choose that, I'm still technically voting for that. So that's why I would say maybe at least do your top 3 and your bottom 3. In the middle, you can kind of just wing it. But anyway, yeah, so let's quickly go over this top 10. And guys, go ahead, do me a favor, hit the like button if you enjoy this one. And we'll get back to some more like regular content pretty soon. I've been busy with the whole PC situation. Anyway, so right here, we've got the Jumping Spider. It's back for another creature vote. This one was on the Scorched Earth one, and as you can see, it's looking a little prettier for this map, to be honest. So, just in general, real life, these are just like crazy, like little spiders. They're really cute looking, and it sounds weird to say that about a spider, but just in general, they actually are. Something like this on Aberration actually could work, because just in general, when we have to think about Aberration, we need to consider the fact that these creatures will, you know, be adapted to the environment. We can't just have something, you know, just a normal dinosaur. It has to be something unique that actually suits the progression and the environment on this map without completely breaking it. So some little spider like this actually could be kind of cool. So here's some pretty cool art for it. Let me open this in a new tab. Here we go. So yeah, this is a really good look at what it potentially could look like, and it's gigantic in this image right here. That's probably like the size that I'd want it to be, though, to be honest. A spider like this is not going to be terrifying to look at. It's going to be really cute to look at because it's really fuzzy. Although, who knows? When it becomes giant in the game, we might have a different approach to this whole kind of cuteness situation. So yeah, some sort of creature like this could look really, really cool. I think their kind of idea is that it would have this kind of thing that a lot of creatures in nature actually have, where they almost make it look like they have eyes in like a different part of their body. So it would hold up 2 of its little legs and create little eyes, essentially, that would trick other creatures into thinking that they're a lot bigger than they actually are. It's a very common thing in nature. There's probably a word for it, and it's just not coming to my mind right now. So for Arachnophobics, oh my god, you guys, like, you're not gonna like this photo at all. I think there's like 3 different spiders on this one. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I don't know, like it could be a really cool creature. Definitely suits the idea of Aberration, and if you add these extra colors and everything, I think it could be really, really cool. The thing I'm kind of thinking in my head is, which one of the biomes would it appear in? And I would say definitely bioluminescent area would be really cool for this guy. There's only really like 3 technical biomes in Aberration, as we all know. The only thing as well is, like, would this thing be immune to radiation, or would it take damage from that? Because that would be a real big deal breaker. If it takes radiation damage, it's probably not really going to be something that you're going to want to bring down to grab yourself some rock drake eggs or something. But yeah, I don't know. I'm all for spiders, and this is the perfect map to introduce one. So yeah, if you like this guy, put him at the very top of your list. Next up, we've got the Shundosaurus, and this is essentially, I thought initially it was like a full-on sauropod, but it's actually kind of like a smaller sauropod. Yeah, it's almost like a little baby one, essentially. So yeah, it's just a sauropod with a little anky tail on the end, which kind of sounds cool. I'm not gonna lie. Like, look at these freaking images here. Like, goddamn, look at that freaking tail. That would be amazing. So yeah, the only thing about this kind of creature is I feel like this isn't the type of creature we'd be able to, like, traverse aberration properly with. You know, we need something that's going to be able to get from, you know, the fertile forest all the way down to the radiation area, and I feel like this guy's not the right fit for that. That being said, I do like the idea right here of actually having this, like, crazy, like, tail with all these spikes and everything on it, and being able to just, like, wreck people with that. I don't know. I think something like this could be really cool. Maybe just not on this map, I'd say. So yeah, the Shundosaurus, it's essentially, like, I would say roughly the same size as, like, a Stego or something like that. Roughly around that size, and then obviously it's a sauropod, so it would be, like, long and kind of lanky towards the ends and very beefy in the middle. Really cool idea, though. I definitely appreciate this artwork as well. I think that, you know, the idea of actually adding in some, like, aberrant glow to it as well would be really cool. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely don't think it suits this map, but you know what? It is a cool looking creature regardless. Yeah, so a couple ideas that they have for it, basically, you know, mostly just tail attacks. I mean, if you've got some sort of crazy tail like that, you're going to use it to attack whatever's coming at you. And we've seen a lot of tail attacks from sauropods, but we've never seen one with an anky tail basically on the end, so it could be pretty cool. Maybe also potentially could be using it to harvest some materials as well, maybe specifically like gems or something. I don't know. Does it say anything about that? Yeah, they wanted to be able to collect pretty much everything. So yeah, I don't know, man. Pretty cool creature, but does it suit this map? I'm not so sure. Regardless, if you like him, put him up top. So I'm gonna butcher this name, but this is the Teraturpion, I think. Teraturpiton. Yeah, I've never heard of this creature before. I actually have to look it up, and it's mostly just like a small little lizard. Although, you know what? I keep saying, oh, it's this size in real life. Look how big they're making it. Regardless, you know, there's so many big creatures in Ark that should not be that size. I don't think it's really much of an issue nowadays, considering the fact that the Rhino is gigantic. I don't think we should be really complaining about that anymore, so I'm gonna try and stop doing that. But yeah, it's just a little lizard essentially. Really cool looking in real life. I mean, unique looking for a lizard. It almost looks like a little bird's face. And I know, obviously, you know, there's a connection there, but still, yeah. So anyway, this dude absolutely sounds crazy. I love this dossier. Great work on this, whoever made this. This is insane. So basically their kind of idea is that it would, like, ambush you with this crazy tongue attack that would just impale through your chest. That sounds amazing. You know what? Hang on. I don't want to say this idea unless, like, if it's already written down here. I don't want to say it as if I'm coming up with it. I didn't read all of this. I usually don't read all of this stuff, mainly because, you know, Wildcard doesn't take every single idea that you write down and put it into the game. You know, a lot of the ideas from the Phasaelasuchus were not actually added, so yeah. Anyway, let me just read through this real quick. From a rough glance, I don't think that they came up with this, but I think for a creature like this, if they made it so it could shoot its tongue through your chest, how amazing would it be if they made it so when you're on it, you could actually detect players that actually have a Reaper baby inside of them, and then you can essentially perform this attack and just instantly kill them or something like that. Just kind of creating, like, this extra little, like, bit of danger when you're running around with a Reaper inside of you. I don't know, could be really cool. Again, I don't know if anybody suggested this. I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's more chest bursting. Maybe we could add something in. So yeah, I don't know. This guy is really cool. Their idea here essentially is that you would feed it some, or I guess you would pacify it using some plant species Z seeds, which is a good way to tie it into aberration. It looks like mostly like an ambush predator as well. There's actually this kind of nice gif. It's really hard to see though. I don't know if you can see it because there's no background to it, but it's essentially a guy up on a cliff, and then the tongue shoots up, goes through him, and then kind of just like holds him still in the air. So yeah, something like that, I don't know, could be really cool to come up against. This is one thing I don't really agree with. This just looks like a rock drake knockoff, doesn't it? Like, It looks like a less cool rock drake. Although, to be fair, the saddle does look pretty cool. Yeah, I actually like that a lot. But yeah, I don't know. That's a great image. I like that. Yeah, I don't really know I don't know if it should necessarily have this kind of look right now, but yeah, I don't know. I like the whole idea of it being just like this ambush predator. Maybe making it smaller and not rideable could be more fun as well. I don't know. There's a lot of creatures on Aberration that are not rideable or tameable, like the Seeker and stuff like that. I definitely noticed that when the DLC came out. But anyway, yeah, so this guy would essentially ambush, just destroy you like that. It would be kind of cool maybe as well if that would be like a finishing move. So when you get a player down to low health, you can just finish them off with this, like just a full-on animation where you just target them and they can't stop it, they can't get away from it, and it just does this and just kills you instantly. Like that idea. Definitely a cool creature. Had no idea this thing existed, but now I'm kind of horrified. Okay, I'm gonna butcher this name. Paleo Octopus. It's essentially an octopus. This kind of piqued my interest a little bit. Okay, now we don't have a huge amount of water on Aberration. You know, there's spots where there are water. There's little rivers in the fertile forest, and then in the crystalline lake kind of area, we have a huge amount of water, and obviously all over the bioluminescent area has got a ton of water. So an octopus may not seem like the best idea, but if you guys have seen these videos of these dudes out of the water, they're actual aliens. It's kind of insane to look at. So essentially, I think their kind of idea here is that it would be the type of creature that could like jump from platform to platform. Yeah, I don't know. Some of these ideas that they've got right here are really, really scary. The idea of it being able to open up doors, which is probably something octopuses could do if they wanted to be out of water for a long time. I'm really glad that the uprising has not happened in my lifetime so far. Hopefully it stays that way. But yeah, that would be so scary. Imagine just being in your base, like just, I don't know, crafting narcotic or something, and then suddenly the door opens and a freaking octopus comes in and eats you. Yeah, do not like that. So essentially, yeah, their whole idea here is that it would be able to kind of be a supporting creature to Reapers by using its ink to kind of just like stop the charge light from getting at Reapers. So I guess you could kind of like shoot some ink onto them, and then it would like protect them for a certain amount of time from being damaged by the charge, which actually could be game changing and just boost Reapers up a ton. But yeah, I don't know, I really like that. And then also they want the ink to also be able to be used as like a pheromone to kind of comfort the babies as well, which would, you know, pacify them when they're really, really small and not make them attack you. Yeah, kind of cool. I really like the idea of an octopus though, because we actually don't have one in Ark. We have a squid, we don't have an octopus. An octopus, they're really, really cool. I like the ideas behind maybe just like the kind of like the jumping idea right here is kind of cool. Maybe some sort of like camouflage. I don't know if it says anything about that here as well, but yeah, that would be really, really amazing. You can equip shields. Dude, like some of these ideas are absolutely insane. Being able to make paint inside of it actually would be kind of cool though. I like that. But yeah, I don't know, man. An octopus sounds like such a weird thing, and if we said like, oh yeah, like, you know, it's gonna be on this map that doesn't have that much water, I'd be like, are you sure? But the whole idea behind it being able to come out of water and jumping around and stuff does intrigue me just a little bit. So yeah, if you guys like this dude, pop him up top. Okay, I'm also gonna butcher this name, Chimera Archney. I don't know. Anyway, it's just a giant arachnid. This thing sounds and looks so terrifying. So yeah, this is, sorry for the arachnophobics, like I said. But yeah, this is what it would look like in real life. This is kind of like similar to what it would look like essentially, but on Aberration, this thing would be nightmare fuel. Look at how scary that looks. That is absolutely terrifying. So yeah, it essentially would do that thing with the eyes, but it's gonna be on its lower back. I don't know what this part's called, whatever. It would kind of stand up like that, and that sounds really scary. Like coming from a distance, imagine just seeing those two glowing eyes just coming right at you. Yeah, so I think that they wanted to have like a hypnosis ability, so be able to lure its prey in, and then obviously once you get close enough, this thing's gonna ruin you. I like that. I definitely like the idea of its the whole kind of like, you know, kind of luring the prey in. Maybe they could add something so it almost would like kind of lure players in as well. I don't know how an actual hypnosis ability would work. It would almost kind of be somewhat like the Noglin, except it's not mounting you, it's just bringing you to it, and then it would just kill you. Sounds really scary though. I like the idea of a spider on this map though. I'm just saying, you know, like the webs. So obviously let's see, what do they want it to be able to do? So essentially this creature would be like perfect for traversing this map, being able to climb on all the surfaces, creating zipline webs. That's one thing I've really wanted the what is it called, the Renio to be able to do for years now. I've been saying this for literal years. Even one of the developers replied to one of my tweets saying about it before, and he said that sounds like a good idea. So maybe we might have that eventually, but if we had that in the form of this guy, I'd be okay with that. Regardless, though, something like this could be absolutely insane. Do they have any more cool images? Yeah, just this is kind of what it would look like. So it's essentially like a spider with almost like a scorpion little tail, stinger on the end and everything. Really, really scary. Do not fully appreciate that idea, because that would be really scary in the game. You know, we've already got enough terrifying things on Aberration. Do we need more? I have no idea. Yeah, lots of these images are just very, very plainly drawn. Pretty cool. Yeah, I like this whole idea right here. Yeah, if you like it, pop them up top. So this is the Chasmosaurus, and it's essentially just a little, almost like a little trike dude. I can't remember the name for that kind of style creature. Yeah, so in real life, they obviously didn't have any cool glowy bits, but they did actually have a pretty cool, that image is so small. They had a pretty cool, like, crest or frill. I can never remember what the word is. But yeah, honestly, I think that adding some Aberration glowiness to that would definitely be a cool idea. So their whole gimmick with this guy is that he essentially would be like a walking charge lantern. So I guess maybe whatever direction you're facing, it's almost, you know, the little charge lantern, like almost weapon that we have in game. You'd be able to kind of like point that around, except it would be on this dude's head instead. So I kind of appreciate that idea. You know, it would be a kind of a decent creature to get to then go into the bioluminescent area. I feel like this dude definitely would spawn in the fertile forest. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, does this creature really suit the map as well? You know, it can't really traverse a huge amount. It can only kind of like get around just a little bit. Size-wise, it would be just a little bit smaller than the Pachyrhinosaurus, and obviously a lot smaller than the Trike. So yeah, kind of like a smaller little baby brother to the two of those. I don't know. I like the whole idea behind this creature, but again, does it suit? Can it get around the map? Because these are things that we need to take into account when we're choosing a new creature. Pretty cool little artworks, actually. I appreciate that. I cannot see any of that. It's all like dark. But yeah, let's see what else can it do. It looks like it's digging into the dirt or something here. I can not really tell what's happening. This is a great image though. Nice. Oh man, yeah, so I don't know, man, like it's definitely a nice creature, but does it suit the map? Who knows? I mean, I would probably say not so much, but at the same time, the whole lantern ability sounds pretty cool. I appreciate that. So yeah, if you like him, pop him up top. So next up, we've got the Coolosuchus, and one interesting thing about this dude, beyond the fact that it's an amphibian, is the fact that it actually could have been added to Ark. This image right here is what would have been on the dossier if they had have went forward with making this creature for Ark, because this was actually made by the same guy who makes a bunch of the Ark dossier images, and he released a bunch of them about a year ago. I made a video going over all of them that weren't used, and yeah, this is what it would have looked like. It looks really cool, although it very much just reminds me of that guy from Monsters Inc. Can you guys see that as well? I can't unsee it. So yeah, this guy would have been an amphibian, and when you kind of compare him to a Diplocaulus, because that's instantly what comes to mind, you know, you can see the Diplocaulus' skull shape was almost like a backwards kind of boomerang. This guy was very much different, but somewhat similar in the same kind of like shape and everything. I think that these guys were a lot bigger though. So their whole idea behind this creature is that it would kind of just chill inside of waters, and it would have like a little bulb at the end of its tongue sticking out, and then if you go anywhere near that, it would jump out and ambush you and grab you like this unfortunate survivor in its mouth right here. I think that they've also got some sort of like little submarine for the back of it, because obviously if you're riding on a Diplocaulus, it gives you oxygen, so you can't really do the exact same thing. So I think their whole idea here is that you'd essentially have like a little submarine type thing on the back. Now, just in general, I don't think that really completely suits like Aberration. It's definitely a cool idea. Definitely could be cooler on a different map though. There's not that much water on Aberration, let's be honest. Like, you know, there is a little water cave, but you only need to get through a little bit of water to get into the cave, and then once you're in there, you know, you don't need really any swimming mounts. I guess there is a little water tunnel on the inside. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, the whole idea behind this guy is essentially like a little submarine amphibian creature, and obviously this guy would not walk fast on land whatsoever, but probably be pretty fast in the water. Size-wise, you can see here's the human compared to him, so they are quite big, but yeah, I don't know. There's the little bulb thing on the end of his tongue there as well. Let's zoom right in on that, and there it is. So yeah, I guess if you go anywhere near that, it's just going to eat you, and that actually looks pretty scary. So obviously, if this guy was added, he'd be all around the bioluminescent area, mainly probably around the fertile lake area, and definitely not the type of creature you'd be able to use around the map, but in that area, probably pretty good. So yeah, if you like this dude, pop him up top. Okay, so I'm also going to butcher this name as well. Ornimegalonyx. Megalonyx? I have no idea. Anyway, this is a flightless owl. I like that idea, actually. I really do. The one thing that I was hoping to not see any of in this whole creature vote was flyers, and technically, you know, this is a bird. It just doesn't fly. Yeah, this guy looks kind of scary. So you can just tell, just based on this image right here, this guy would be a really good traveling mount because it looks extremely fast, and also probably have some sort of headlights, I guess. Yeah, so essentially a little flightless bird. You know, just in real life as well, these guys did exist. Obviously, you know, I think there are a couple owls and stuff that don't fly. I think this guy is like a modern day creature. He might still be alive, but just size wise, yeah, it's not anywhere near the size of human, but again, it doesn't really matter too much. Yeah, just in general, could be really cool if you kind of take just all of this inspiration from these colors and just go ham with it and just make it really cool and glowy. I would appreciate that a lot. Yeah, just it's essentially like the snow owl, except it wouldn't really fly at all, essentially. I like that, though. I definitely appreciate this idea. So this guy would essentially be really, really fast and really good at, like, jumping from, like, cliff to cliff, essentially getting around the map really easily and everything. I definitely appreciate this idea. I could definitely see this creature on Aberration, and that's what I like to see out of these creatures in this vote. If I could see it on Aberration and fitting in without breaking it all, then it's perfect. But yeah, so I don't know, man. I don't really have anything bad to say about this guy right here. Like, definitely would appreciate it. I feel like, you know, maybe it doesn't suit a huge amount, but if they added like a little bit of like a flutter to it, almost like a terror bird, it would actually probably replace the terror bird as like a better creature and actually doing what the terror bird does, and maybe more. Yeah, I like this guy. Definitely would be really cool. And the idea of like an owl again on Aberration would really, really suit, because, you know, nocturnal creatures, and Aberration is in eternal darkness anyway. So yeah, if you like this guy, pop him up top. So next up we have the Motobite, and I looked this up because I was like, there's no way this thing exists, and I see food, and now I'm really hungry. So yeah, thank you very much to whoever submitted this. You just made me hungry. Yeah, so this is obviously not what it is. This right here is essentially what this creature would have been, and it's essentially kind of like a trilobite that like kind of curls up, I guess. Yeah, you can kind of see here, like they did curl up, maybe roll a little bit as well, but yeah, just this whole, honestly, that looks like it's pulled straight from the Alien movies. Really, really scary looking. This whole idea with this guy is it would essentially be just like a perfect little traveling around mount. Obviously, something like this would not be too powerful or anything like that, but I like this little idea with its saddle actually having some like headlamps on it. That actually sounds pretty cool. So the idea is you'd be able to run, or I guess roll around all around the surface, and then also be able to go down into the water, and I'm guessing they'd be pretty good at collecting up some silica pearls. It looks like... What is that? Is that like a little straw? Yeah, so they wanted to be able to like spitball silica pearls. I like that, actually. I like that idea a lot. That would be so silly. Imagine just going around like shooting people with silica pearls. I like that. Yeah, if they didn't do that much damage, I feel like that could really work out. Yeah, I think, honestly, like, it seems kind of silly, but I think this creature kind of suits Aberration just a little bit. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's just so bizarre as an actual creature to add into the game, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I like this whole silica pearl idea here. So yeah, perfect traveling mount, obviously great for Aberration. I don't know if you can like jump or anything like that, but maybe you can kind of like speed up and like bounce or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, could be pretty cool. And obviously it actually existed as well. This is new to me. I had no idea this thing existed. Not in the same form that in Ark, but, you know, somewhat similar at least. Okay, I'm also gonna butcher this name as well. The Yiki? I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea. Anyway, yeah, so this guy, I'm pretty sure this dude was in a previous creature vote, and I feel like it dates all the way back to, like, maybe Lost Island, maybe potentially Fjordur. One of the first ones anyway. Yeah, so essentially it looks like a flyer, but this guy would be a gliding creature, which I can appreciate. It's a good idea not to try and add a flyer into this map. We don't need any of those. But yeah, it looks pretty crazy and ferocious looking. Let's see, is there any more images in here? Wait, what the hell? What is this? I have no idea. Yeah, there's an actual full image of what it looks like in the dossier. I like that a lot. That actually looks amazing. And if they made it look like that in the game as well, I would appreciate that, just for my obsession with making, you know, mutated creatures that always end up blue regardless. Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. So in real life, these guys actually did exist, or yeah, did exist. I was about to say do exist. There's no way this thing still exists. Yeah, so it's a little, it's almost like a little, like, bat dinosaur, essentially. Kind of similar, not completely in the way to the cinema crops as well, but yeah, I like that a lot. It's kind of just like a bigger, beefier version of like a cinema crops. That looks kind of terrifying. So an idea behind this dude as well is he'd be able to like shoot his feathers at people. Pretty cool. Kind of like almost like a finite amount of feathers to be able to shoot. So it could be kind of cool for like combat and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really like that artwork. Yeah. Anyway, if you like this dude, pop him up top. All right, so that is the top 10, and I have to say, there's a lot of strong entries in this vote. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of really cool creatures that would be very cool in Aberration especially. So yeah, I don't know, choose wisely, guys, and obviously drop whatever your top 10 are down below. If you don't want to do them all, just at least let me know what you're actually voting for. I myself have no idea just yet. I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit, and then I'll place my vote, but I'll share all my actual top 10 afterwards. But yeah, guys, if you have enjoyed this one, go ahead, do me a favor, hit the like button, and yeah, catch you in the next one.
Today, we're talking about Border Patrol agents reportedly being ordered to push migrant kids and babies back into the Rio Grande. Questions around Carlee Russell's disappearance and later re-emergence now heating up. Trump's about to get indicted again. Moist Critical has thrown out scamming accusations. The disturbing situation around the Gilgo Beach killer. We're going to talk about all that and so much more in today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news, so buckle up, hit that like button, and let's just jump into it. Starting with, we've got to talk about updates involving the mysterious disappearance of Carlee Russell. She's the Alabama woman who vanished for 2 days after calling 911 about a toddler she said she saw on the side of the highway, then showing up back home Saturday night. And since then, her boyfriend has asked people to be respectful of her situation and saying she was literally fighting for her life for 48 hours, so until she's physically and mentally stable again, she is not able to give any updates or whereabouts on her kidnapper at this very moment. And her mother promising to give the media more information when they're ready. But the internet has been floating ideas and theories about what happened in the meantime. Like there being one theory that sex traffickers used the supposed toddler as bait to lure Russell into a trap. Though the nonprofit that runs the National Human Trafficking Hotline doubts those claims, saying, as far as we are aware, this is not a tactic that traffickers use. And adding far more common ways that traffickers use to recruit is that it's a family member. You have a lifelong tie to them and they will exploit that. And so as time's gone on, we've increasingly seen more people accusing Russell of fabricating her own disappearance and calling the whole thing a hoax, with them pointing to unexplained details like the whereabouts of the supposedly missing toddler, or a 911 recording that seemingly shows Russell's family reporting a call from her at a motel about 5 miles from where she went missing Saturday night. Though in that same call, first responders say the front desk staff had no residents checked in under Russell's name. And so with all this, you have the likes of conservative pundit Candace Owens suggesting Russell may be the female Jussie Smollett, though that and other skepticism provoking an angry response from many online who say the conspiracy theories are racist. People saying things like, what's wild is how the allegations of a hoax have started with absolutely no evidence. Y'all don't trust black women. Y'all don't believe black women. Y'all don't even want the bare minimum of safety for us. And others adding, it's nasty work to believe that because your thirst for entertainment has not been quenched by Carlee Russell and her family, that something is off. They are entitled to privacy, period. If you're that concerned for safety reasons about what happened to her, contact the Hoover Police Department. But ultimately, for now, as we're recording, that's where things stand. And honestly, until there's more concrete information that clears up all the speculation, this is going to remain a mystery and people are going to keep sounding off on it. Though in the meantime, I got to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here? And then, this guy's been described as a big, goofy family man. He's had a successful career, a 25-year marriage, and it turns out he is one of Long Island's most notorious serial killers. Or at least that's what investigators are claiming now that they've arrested a suspect for the Gilgo Beach murders, which if you haven't heard of, this goes back to 2010 when the remains of 9 women, 1 man, and 1 toddler were found off a highway near Gilgo Beach. Most of the victims were sex workers in their 20s who went missing over the previous few years. But for the next 13 years, the case went cold, with the Gilgo Beach killer becoming this kind of boogeyman for the local area. That is, until last week when police announced that they had found the man who did it, a hulking 6'4", 59-year-old creep by the name of Rex Heuermann.
Rex Heuermann, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter, born and raised on Long Island.
Okay.
Been working in Manhattan since 1987.
And as for the evidence, police reportedly connected him to the murders through a discarded pizza box with DNA matching a hair found on the burlap used to wrap a body, as well as 4 burner phones. Police say that he activated before each murder and shut off afterward. Court records showing a Google search history that allegedly shows he closely followed the murder investigation, looked up sex workers and torture porn, and stalked and harassed the victims' families after killing them. Also inside his home, detectives reportedly found over 200 guns and a life-size doll inside a glass case. But all of this leading to last week, video capturing the moment when agents in dark suits swarmed on Fifth Avenue in New York for his arrest. And on Thursday, he was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, and he's the prime suspect in a 4th. Though there, he pled not guilty, and his lawyer saying that he wept when he was arrested. But what's been perhaps most shocking for so many people is how normal this guy appeared to be. At the same time that he allegedly murdered several women, he also was living the suburban life with his wife and 2 kids. Also notably there, police saying that his wife's hair was found on multiple bodies, though she was out of state when the murders happened. And the county commissioner saying that he believes that the family were completely unaware of his crimes, saying they were shocked, they were disgusted, they were embarrassed. Meanwhile, you had neighbors telling the Times that the family was reclusive and enigmatic. Cashiers at a supermarket saying they knew them as this quiet, cheerless family that shopped several times a week, though Heuermann never accompanied them. But then also you had others describing him as a menace, saying they told their kids to avoid his house on Halloween, that he glared at them while swinging an axe in his front yard, with one neighbor saying we would cross the street, he was somebody you don't want to approach. And all of the descriptions of people either who were like close in proximity to him or actually knew him kind of show how he was able to compartmentalize things. With these back-to-back lines from the New York Times, I think, really highlighting this. With the article stating Mr. Heuermann's friends and clients in the real estate business were flabbergasted, but then saying his neighbor said, I wasn't surprised at all because of all the creepiness. And I think that's why you should almost like never be surprised by things, because whoever you get in the moment, that's who they're giving you. But with all this, you do still have to keep in mind Heuermann is still insisting on his innocence, and so we're gonna have to see how this trial plays out. And then Barbenheimer is fast approaching. We're just now days away, and with the dual strike happening right now, while there's a lot of excitement, there are also a lot of questions. Because you got some consumers calling for a boycott of streaming services, others wondering if they're crossing some sort of picket line just by going to see a movie in the theaters, some wondering, do I need to cancel my tickets to show solidarity? And well, there, the short answer is no, that's not necessary. You can still go to the theaters and watch TV and support the writers and actors. But right now, neither of the guilds asking consumers to boycott any content, so your Barbenheimer double feature can continue as planned. Though current box office estimates say that at least domestically, about twice as many people are expected to go watch Barbie. But more specifically, with this situation, you had one WGA strike captain tweeting, WGA nor SAG have asked for a boycott of the streamers. So that's not union guidelines, but you do you. But you can donate to the entertainment fund, or bring water to the picket lines, it's really hot outside, or food. Meanwhile, you also have others encouraging people to go to the theater and watch television, or saying the show/movies created prior to the strike still deserve your support, and adding do not boycott anything coming out soon unless the unions call for it. Go see Barbie, Oppenheimer. Another SAG strike captain adding, a reminder, SAG has not called for a consumer boycott. Please keep watching TV and films. If anything, this helps prove the studios need us. AI doesn't have the soul or emotion real people do. Also, this helps prove marginalized stories and actors are sorely needed in our industry. Which on that note, if you want to donate to the Entertainment Community Fund, which helps impacted workers, as well as the Union Solidarity Fund, I'll link to those down below. And then, is it a scam or is it just trash? That is the debate around this situation involving 2 creators by the name of Moist Critical and Nick E. User. Because Moist Critical says that he got scammed yesterday, posting a video saying he was going through Steam to play some of the worst games there when he came across a game called Greed of Man with terrible reviews. Saying it looked like a fun, shitty game, it caught his attention, normally at a $30 price tag, though he got it on sale for $20.
$20 for the worst experience I've ever had on Bad Games Night. The game's not a scam just because it's bad. I'm gonna get into it in a moment. It's a legitimate, genuine scam by all definitions.
With him then going on to describe the game as empty and non-functional, saying he went to the Steam community forums to see if there was any chatter, and
it turns out this game was actually developed by a TikTok star. His name is Nick the User, and he is apparently notorious for making fake games and hosing his audience down for money, buying into the idea that he's a great game developer releasing hit products.
With Greed of Man apparently being his latest endeavor, which he initially promised would be free to play, but then it hit the market at $30, even though the price was eventually lowered. And according to Moise, he believes that one aspect of it might be similar to a phishing scam as well, because as he was playing it on Steam, tons of people started telling him it was a scam. He then later stopped playing to get a refund, but also realized to play the game, he had to put his Steam account information in, so he speculated.
Let me run through how I think this goes. I think what's happened here is Nick has made games like this, which are basically like GTA Online or Roblox Open World, come in, come on. And what happens is when you try and play the game, you have to sign up on his website, which I did, and you have to link your Steam, which I did, like an absolute buffoon. So I think what he does then is he maybe sells your information somewhere.
And saying he doesn't think Nick uses the information himself, but rather he's a data harvester. And notably, Moist isn't the first YouTuber speaking out against Nick. Right, just last week, another YouTuber by the name of Big Fry TV also made similar allegations, saying Nick amassed a large audience promoting a different failed game before Greed of Man, and saying he's now making almost $3,000 a month off of his Patreon, where he says he promises stuff like early access betas, including to Greed of Man. So you have all that, and then for his part, Nick, who is apparently only 17, responded to previous scamming accusations by saying he's just a high schooler who does this for fun on the side, and adding,
scams are something where you get your money taken and you don't get anything out of it. This, it's a Steam game. You can buy the game, and if you don't like it, you refund it.
And today, he actually made a video responding to Moist, saying he understands why he thinks the game's a scam and wants to correct any wrongs.
And about calling all of my games and projects scams, I just don't think I fully understand how large my audience truly is. Like, in my mind, when I was making those projects, I had a really small, like, community of just a few people that were kind of interested and were willing to pay a decent amount of money to help me develop and learn new skills with the game development. But I understand now that my community's so big that if I release a project, it's gotta be good or else it's gonna be listed as a scam.
Which he said he takes responsibility for, saying he thought only a couple people would spend $30, that he didn't anticipate so many people buying it. So with that, saying he's working to get the game to a better state. He also addressed the choice to charge for the game instead of making it free, saying that he wants to build up so he can start his own studio.
I'm not trying to be a scammer. I'm trying to be a genuine developer, and I just didn't approach things correctly.
He also made a video showing his future plans for Greed of Man and responded to a comment asking about the login info on his website. And to that, he said it's for moderation and to prevent pirating, but he's working on a way to get seamlessly logged in without the website. With all of that then bringing us back to the question of, is it actually a scam or is it just trash? Like a variation of that other game that we constantly play of, is it evil or just stupid? And part of the reason there are always such big debates around those things is it's an argument around intent. And so we'll have to wait to see how things play out, but in the meantime, I'd love to know which camp you land in. Are you in the camp of this was a scam or something scammy, or do you think this is a situation where a kid got in over his head and now a bunch of people are piling on? Which side do you agreeing with and why? And then we're hoping to get back to Italy someday, so I'm working on my Italiano. Ti piace il mio spettacolo? I still got to work on it a lot, but miles better than when I was a kid, just not understanding what my grandparents were saying in the car. But, you know, thanks to the fantastic sponsor of today's show, Babbel, I can ask random people in Italy if they like my show. Which, by the way, the answer is no. We have almost no viewership there. But look, the best way to learn a language is through immersion, living where the language is spoken natively, using it every day, or you just download and use Babbel to start speaking your chosen language in as little as 3 weeks. Our Babbel came in handy when we were in Mexico. I refreshed up my Spanish skill, something that was very important because I failed Spanish 2 twice back in high school. But doing it this way, it helped me build up my confidence. And so instead of paying hundreds of dollars for a private tutor or using language apps that are a little more than games, try Babbel's 10-minute lessons designed by real people for real conversations. Their tips and tools for learning a new language are approachable, accessible, rooted in real-life situations, and delivered with conversation-based teaching. Plus, their speech recognition technology helped me improve my Spanish pronunciation and accent, which in part boosted my confidence, and it also seemed like the locals appreciated it as well. And get this, right now, you can get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but it's only for you beautiful bastards if you go to babbel.com/DeFranco. Yeah, that's 55% off at babbel.com/DeFranco, spelled BABBEL.com/DeFranco. Rules and restrictions may apply. And then, according to an absolutely insane new report from the Houston Chronicle, officers working for Texas Governor Greg Abbott's border security initiative have been ordered to push small children and nursing babies back into the Rio Grande and have been told not to give water to asylum seekers even in extreme heat, with those allegations coming from an email sent by a Department of Public Safety trooper to a superior and viewed by Hearst Newspapers, which owns the Chronicle, as well as CNN. And notably, all this comes as Abbott has recently ramped up efforts to prevent migrants from crossing the border through his controversial Operation Lone Star policy. With this, the email provides several previously unreported incidents that the trooper witnessed firsthand in Eagle Pass, which is the target of the most aggressive initiatives under Operation Lone Star. This including miles of razor wire being strung up and a large wall of buoys being deployed along the Rio Grande River. With those efforts not only attracting widespread criticism from human rights activists, but also drawing legal complaints from the Mexican government and created conflicts with federal officials. With Hearst Newspapers reporting last week that federal border patrol officials issued internal warnings that the razor wire is preventing their agents from reaching at-risk migrants and increasing the risk of drownings in the Rio Grande. And in that, you had the trooper also suggesting that Texas has set barrels wrapped in razor wire in parts of the Rio Grande where the water levels are high but visibility is poor, and calling them traps. And reportedly adding that the wire has caused more drownings because migrants are forced to deeper parts of the river. And the trooper writes, writing. I believe we have stepped over a line into the inhumane. We need to operate it correctly in the eyes of God. We need to recognize that these are people who are made in the image of God and need to be treated as such. And the stories they witnessed and shared in the email are absolutely wild. And keep in mind, all of these incidents took place just over the course of 1 week, with the trooper detailing 4 absolutely horrible examples that took place just on June 30th alone. This including a group of people who had a 4-year-old girl with them who were trying to cross the wire but were pressed back by Texas Guard soldiers due to orders given to them. With a little girl passing out from exhaustion due to the recent heat wave, which brought temperatures of well over 100 degrees. In another instance, a young woman who was said to be in obvious pain when she was stuck in wire, with a medical assessment later determining that she was pregnant and having a miscarriage. The trooper also treated a man who had a significant laceration on his leg after he cut his child free from a barrel with razor wire, as well as a 15-year-old who broke his leg in the river because the razor wire was, quote, laid out in a manner that it forced him into the river where it is unsafe to travel. And just days before those 4 incidents, the email also described a group of 120 migrants, including several young children and babies, who were camped out near a fence along the river. With the trooper writing that the group was exhausted and hungry, but the shift officer in command had ordered troops to push the people back into the water to go to Mexico. With the troopers there deciding that was wrong because it brought the very real potential of exhausted people drowning. And so again, they called command with their concerns, but were ordered to tell them to go to Mexico and get into our vehicle and leave. Beyond that, the trooper's email also sheds new light on a series of previously reported drownings in the river during a 1-week stretch earlier this month, that including a mother and at least one of her 2 children who Federal Border Patrol agents spotted struggling to cross the Rio Grande on July 1st. And so with all that, you have the trooper also calling for a number of policy changes to fix migrant safety, with that including removing wire razor barrels and getting rid of the directive on withholding water. But notably here, in an email to reporters, the Department of Public Safety spokesperson said that there was not a policy against giving water to migrants, but he did acknowledge that the DPS was aware of the email and even gave the Chronicle more emails in response, with the outlet reporting those emails detail 7 other incidents reported by federal border agents in which migrants were injured on the wires, including children. And among the emails shared by the spokesman was one from DPS Director Stephen McCraw, sent just this weekend, where he called for an audit to see if more steps can be taken to decrease the risk posed to migrants by Abbott's policy. And McCraw also noting in another email that there's been an increase in injuries from the wire, writing the purpose of the wire is to deter smuggling between the ports of entry and not to injure migrants. And adding, we must take all necessary measures to mitigate the risk to them, including injuries from trying to cross over the concertina wire, drownings, and dehydration. But despite everything we've talked about, a spokesperson for Abbott appeared to defend his policies in a statement to both the Chronicle and CNN, painting his actions as necessary steps to protect the border and accusing federal officials of failing to do so, saying Texas is deploying every tool and strategy to deter and repel illegal crossings between ports of entry, as President Biden's dangerous open border policies entice migrants from over 150 countries to risk their lives entering the country illegally, and claiming that the absence of razor wire and other deterrent strategies encourages migrants to make unsafe and illegal crossings between ports of entry, while making the job of Texas National Guard soldiers and DPS troopers more dangerous and difficult. But of course, this story and Abbott's response have gained widespread backlash from many people and even top leaders in the state, and that including Beto O'Rourke, who trended on Twitter this morning alongside the story after sharing the article in writing, "Abbott, you are a thug, a murderer, a ghoul. People are dying while you play war games against defenseless mothers and children. Pro-life my ass." With him also calling on Biden to step in and saying that he's the one person who has the power to stop Abbott, which is also something that's been echoed by other leaders, and some leaders calling for a federal investigation. But with that, we've also seen experts say it's unclear what powers exactly Biden would have here, as well as would he actually try to step in and use his executive authorities over a governor, because even if he did, any challenge would likely be taken to the courts. And then, I never thought I'd have to give this advice, but do not run into North Korea. And I say that because this one American soldier apparently thought that this would be a good idea. Notably, he hasn't been heard from since he did this. It's believed that he's now in North Korean custody, but of course, one of the biggest questions is how did he manage to cross arguably the most fortified border in the world? And apparently, he just stepped over it, with the incident happening when he was on tour of the Joint Security Area, where the South Korean side's run by the United Nations Command and has completely open public tours all the time. And unlike the DMZ, which is an almost 2.5-mile buffer around the rest of the border full of landmines and barbed wire, you can actually just walk into North Korea from this spot, with the border just marked by a single concrete line, and you won't get shot for doing it as the soldiers aren't even armed. Right, it's where you might remember Trump walked over to meet his BFF Kim Jong-un. Now initially, there was some mystery as to whether this was like an accident or what actually happened, but now US officials are quoted as saying that he willfully and without authorization crossed the border, and more information has been slowly trickling out, with it now reported that the unnamed soldier was actually facing disciplinary action and being escorted back to the US. But somehow, through whatever means, he managed to shake his escort to the airport and got back into South Korea, where he joined this tour. And an eyewitness actually told Reuters that while at the Joint Security Area, the man gave out a loud ha 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 and just runs in between some of the buildings. And usually there are guards near the buildings, but it's also not unheard of them to back off a bit during the tours. And as for the North Korean side, it actually hasn't had visible guards since the pandemic began. But ultimately, with where we are, you have the US and UN moving to have the soldier released, but he's also probably gonna have a bad time, because on top of the disciplinary action he may already be facing, he's looking at more problems because of the stunt. And also keep in mind, his timing could not have been worse. Tensions between North Korea, the US, and South Korea have been rising lately, with North Korea testing more and more advanced missile systems. So it really wouldn't be surprising if we saw this soldier turned into a bargaining chip or a propaganda piece. Right, in the past, you've actually had US soldiers defect to North Korea for a variety of reasons, and they're turned into tools to show the citizens there, hey, look how great North Korea is. But just a friendly bit of advice, if you are on the run, a lot of better places than North Korea, like almost literally every other place. And then, you've heard this song before, but it looks like Trump's gonna be federally indicted again. Because just today, the former president said in a post on Truth Social that he received a letter from special counsel Jack Smith this weekend informing him that he's the target of a federal criminal investigation into the efforts to overturn the 2020 election. With Trump calling Smith deranged again and claiming that the special counsel gave him a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and indictment. Which, I mean, he's not wrong in the last part. When someone gets a letter from the DOJ telling them that they're the target of a probe, it's usually a really good sign they're about to be indicted. And to give you like a little quick catch up here, target is actually a technical term that the DOJ defines as a person to whom the prosecutor or the grand jury has substantial evidence linking him or her to the commission of a crime. And the DOJ specifically encouraging prosecutors to send so-called target letters in cases where people are likely to be indicted, so they get the opportunity to testify before the grand jury in their probe. And very notably, Trump was indicted on federal charges just days after it was reported that he had gotten a target letter for the Mar-a-Lago inquiry. Or in other words, here it seems like Trump's going to be indicted on the January 6th probe in a matter of days or weeks, which for Trump would be the 3rd time he's been indicted, and it would be his 2nd federal indictment. Now, very notably with this one, experts say that an indictment related to the insurrection would actually be much more difficult to prove than the mishandling of sensitive government documents. But also, the charges would be brought in Washington, D.C., where the jury pool would likely be less sympathetic to Trump than it would be in Florida, where the charges in the documents probe are being heard. And then, the state of news right now is crisis. It's really just a matter of which kind and at which level. For example, it's not a secret that local news is in crisis. We're talking about a reported 7% of all counties in America now having no local news outlets, with another 20% on the brink of becoming news deserts. And everywhere you turn, there are headlines talking about the loss of local newsrooms and the potentially disastrous consequences, and there are very few solutions being thrown out, which is why many news outlets have turned their attention towards modern tools like streaming and AI in an effort to stay afloat in their communities. There's actually been some movement on the streaming front, with hundreds of local TV broadcast stations rallying together to be heard. Or we're talking about more than 600 broadcaster stations that are a part of trade associations representing the local affiliates of major networks like ABC and Fox, all of which have joined together forming the Coalition for Local News. And that coalition recently sending a letter to the FCC pressuring them to close a legal loophole that would leave local stations in the dust, because that loophole is part of a provision from 2014 that requires traditional TV providers to negotiate directly with local broadcasters to carry their stations. However, the FCC doesn't define live streaming television the same way it does traditional TV. So that loophole allows live streaming TV companies like YouTube's to completely bypass negotiations with local broadcasters. With Michael O'Brien, Senior Vice President and Chief Distribution Officer of one local broadcast group, saying, "There's no way for us to advance our own individual strategies as broadcasters when we don't have a say in the largest growing platform and revenue stream in our business." So the coalition wants the FCC to refresh the rules to reflect the modern streaming age, and that could force a completely new definition of what a TV provider is. And it makes sense why they want these changes. Right? I mean, the last time these rules were debated, there were fewer than 200,000 Americans subscribed to digital live TV, but now analysts estimate that's around 17 million. Now with this, the FCC says that while it can issue a public call for a refresh, it doesn't have the authority to actually change the provision itself. Instead, it needs the backing of Congress. Which brings us to the lawmakers, where we've actually seen some support, including the likes of Senators Chuck Grassley and Maria Cantwell. And in fact, last month, the FCC said that it was planning on investigating whether the current TV distribution models need to be revised, so this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Though notably, they aren't stopping at streaming, because national and even local news have partnered with AI firms as well. And we're not talking like with little firms, we're talking about OpenAI, the parent of ChatGPT, with them actually announcing they've reached a 2-year deal with the American Journalism Project to help local outlets experiment with AI technology, with OpenAI committing $5 million in funding to the AJP, who in turn will use it to offer grants to its organizations to experiment with AI and find the best practices for its use in newsrooms and products. With that money also reportedly being used to create a studio with the AJP to support local news as they experiment with the technology and share feedback with OpenAI and what is and isn't working. And the CEO of AJP saying, "We see this as an opportunity to create a feedback loop between OpenAI and the local journalism industry." Right? It's just one part of their greater goal of establishing a relationship with the journalism industry for news and tech share. Like for example, just last week, they announced a 2-year deal with the Associated Press to share access to certain news content and technology, with the AP offering up some of their text archives for OpenAI to train their artificial intelligence. And with that, the AP will get access to OpenAI's technology and expertise. And with this, Axios is reporting that this partnership is meant for both sides to determine what responsible use of artificial intelligence in the newsroom looks like, because there's been a lot of concern about the future of AI, specifically in news, with their senior VP and CFO saying, "News organizations must have a seat at the table to ensure this happens so that newsrooms large and small can leverage this technology to benefit journalism." And that is where your daily dive into the news is going to end. But for more news you need to know, I got you covered right here or in those links down below. And if you've already watched everything, do not worry, because my exposing the studios as greedy liars. We're talking about all that and so much more in today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news, so buckle up, hit that like button, and let's just jump into it. Starting with, you need to drink bleach if you want to cure cancer. That, to be clear, is not a DeFranco-approved message, but rather the hell of a sales pitch the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing in Florida told its followers for over a decade. Right, because in 2010, its so-called Archbishop Mark Grennan supposedly co-founded it with Jim Humble, a man who claimed to be a billion-year-old god from the Andromeda Galaxy. And although Humble reportedly stepped away back in 2017, Grennan continued to run the business with his sons Jonathan, Joseph, and Jordan, ages 37, 35, and 29. Understand, I call this a business because they sold bottles of what they called Miracle Mineral Solution, or MMS, and they marketed it as this miracle cure for literally 95% of the world's ailments, from cancer and COVID to HIV and hepatitis. But understand, this wasn't just some like Kool-Aid flavored water. When prepared as directed with citric acid, MMS turns into chlorine dioxide, an industrial bleaching agent, which is why in 2019 the FDA had to warn that consuming it is the same as drinking bleach, and adding that reports came in of people vomiting, having severe diarrhea, life-threatening dehydration, and acute liver failure, and all that leading to 2020, where a federal court ordered the Grennans to stop selling this poison. But they just refused, and they kept doing it, claiming civil disobedience and threatening to resort to the Second Amendment, and saying in a letter to the judge, the DOJ and FDA have no authority over our church, and all that leading to federal prosecutors charging them with conspiring to defraud the U.S. and selling misbranded drugs. And although Mark and Joseph, they fled to Colombia, seemed to be free, local authorities caught and extradited them back to the U.S. And so now they're going on trial, and it already looks like it's going to be a clown show, with the four men declining to have a lawyer, choosing instead to represent themselves and appearing in court with matching beards and ponytails. While they oddly declined to give any sort of opening statement, the prosecutors did not pass up theirs, with them calling the family a bunch of snake oil salesmen and con men who pretended their scam was a religious organization to avoid federal regulations. And apparently the district judge there agrees, because she said before the trial that they can't use religious freedom as a defense because they're not a religious entity, and that despite all their trappings of holiness, with them allegedly calling themselves bishops, their bleach bottles sacraments, and their customers payment donations, with them all in all allegedly raking in millions of dollars from tens of thousands of sales over the years. But with all that, I really just have this one question of why bleach? Like, there's always going to be con men in general, and there are con men who use, you know, the trappings of religion and religious institutions as a shield, but why give your customers bleach? Why not like sugar water and vitamins? Like, was there some sort of thinking of like, we need people to feel like they're suffering, so maybe it's working? Or is it something more twisted, like they got off on the idea of like they were exploiting people's faith and making them feel worse? And then they're cooking our babies alive. Those are the desperate words of a grieving mother whose son died in a sweltering Texas prison last month. And the thing is, she's not alone, with dozens of former inmates and prisoners' relatives rallying at the state capitol yesterday, protesting the lack of air conditioning in state prisons, which become almost uninhabitable during the summer in heat waves like this one. Because since mid-June of this year, at least 9 prisoners have reportedly died from heart attacks and cardiac events in uncooled prisons where the outdoor temperature was over 100 degrees. And you also have at least another 14 dying from unknown causes in, in extreme heat. And although the Texas Department of Criminal Justice has not acknowledged that a prisoner died from the heat since 2012, there's There's a study that estimates that as many as 13% of the deaths in the state's prisons during warm months could be caused by heat, because reportedly over 2/3 of Texas's 100 prisons don't have AC in most living areas. And keep in mind, we're talking about concrete and steel buildings with some people living on upper floors. So when the temperature outside tops triple digits, the temperature inside becomes a sauna, and that's not an exaggeration. With inmates and relatives sharing their stories about this.
It's very easy to kind of give into that oppressing heat and almost frankly forget to breathe.
I would flood the toilet and I would lay in about an inch of cold running water with my fan propped over me.
He's the youngest of my sons. My heart aches when I see him, when I talk to him, because I can't help him.
So increasingly, we've seen activists and lawmakers demanding that Governor Greg Abbott call an immediate special legislative session on the issue, with State Representative Carl Sherman complaining that lawmakers spent the entire summer fighting over property taxes and other things that he called rich people problems, especially because back in May, the state Senate shot down a House proposal to invest more than $500 million in prison air conditioning. And that, even though they had a $32.7 billion budget surplus for the next 2 years. But this also isn't just a Texas problem. Right, by one count, 44 states do not have air conditioning in all their prisons, and 10 of them are in the South, with Mississippi's largest prison reportedly reaching up to 145 degrees. So the state government finally installing AC units last year. But of course, with this, you have critics wondering, will the government actually do something? Because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that are affected by this, but also a group of people that are routinely ignored because we dehumanize the incarcerated. And then, should you get an advantage because your mom or your daddy went to that college? That is a question that's been getting debated more and more following the Supreme Court overturning affirmative action. Because so-called legacy admissions have been criticized for years now for favoring rich white applicants over people of color. So that practice has now come under even more attack since the Supreme Court decided that schools can't consider race in admissions. And it's seeming like increasingly more and more people agreeing that legacy admissions are unfair. And in fact, top politicians on both sides of the aisle, including President Biden himself, have come out against the practice. And polls have consistently shown that the public agrees there. With a Pew Research Center survey taken last year finding that 3 in every 4 people believe that legacy status should not be considered for admission. And in fact, a new poll from Generation Lab taken after the affirmative action ruling found a nearly identical margin among college students, with 75% saying they believe the practice is either definitely not fair or probably not fair. And it looks like some schools are actually taking that to heart, right? Because part of the reason we're talking about this today is because the esteemed liberal arts school Wesleyan University announced that it would be ending legacy admission. And notably, they're following in the footsteps of other selective schools that have recently made the same move, including Amherst, Johns Hopkins, and Carnegie Mellon. But while to a degree this seems like a trend, you need to understand that many other competitive schools are reluctant to stop legacy admissions. And that because they argue they're important for building intergenerational communities and for getting donations for alumni that can be used to fund financial aid, as well as some pockets. Beyond that, experts also note that making this decision could be harder for schools like Harvard and Yale, which have a higher percentage of legacy admissions. Right, Wesleyan, by contrast, had just around 3,000 undergrads, and its president said today that even before this decision, legacy status played a negligible role in the school's admissions process. And then, Jenna Ortega, Anne Hathaway, and Paul Rudd are still making movies amid the actors' strike. But before you grab that bucket of tomatoes and start chucking, understand they are not scabs and they're not actually crossing picket lines. Instead, yesterday what we saw was SAG granting approval to 39 different independent projects that'll still be allowed to continue shooting amid the strike. And in great news for you film nerds, this includes 2 A24 films. One starring Anne Hathaway, Hunter Schafer, and Michaela Cole, and the other with Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd, which, just as a side note, is a movie about a father and daughter who accidentally kill a unicorn with their car. And as far as why did they get this exemption, right? If the actors are on strike, why are they working? Reportedly, the reason these films got exemptions was because A24 and other groups behind those movies are not a part of the AMPTP, right? That group that's representing the studios that actors are on strike against. And so that means for these 39 projects, not only can they keep shooting them, but after production is completed, the actors can do promotion for them. And according to Variety, they just have to abide by the terms of the latest offer submitted by SAG. And with all this, you had SAG's chief negotiator, Duncan Crabtree Ireland, explaining that it's beneficial for actors to continue to work on approved projects or under interim agreements right now. With Rolling Stone quoting him as saying, "It really helps to show in a very practical way that the studios' claim that our proposals are unrealistic are just bogus. Our members who work under interim agreements are actually helping advance the cause just in a different way." So while obviously there are very real concerns about there being some sort of entertainment drought because of these strikes, there is also the possibility that if this goes on for a long time, we may see a sort of renaissance when it comes to indie films. In that maybe we see a number of movies getting released that don't have like a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, or an 8 after the title, since in general it seems like many of the studios have been allergic to like original or at least new IP. And then, if you're a dog lover like me, nutrition is very important for your dog's life and well-being, but it can also get costly, which is actually why I'm excited to tell you more about the sponsor of today's show, Sundays. Sundays is fresh dog food made from a short list of human-grade ingredients containing 90% meat, 10% veggies, and 0 synthetic nutrients. And unlike other fresh dog foods brands, because Sundays doesn't waste money shipping frozen packages. Instead, they spend the money on what matters, sourcing the best all-natural ingredients for your dog. Trust me, you gotta try. I loved how excited my dogs got. And best of all, you can get 35% off your first order of Sundays. Just go to sundaysfordogs.com/Phil or just use code Phil at checkout. And then the government and Big Brother have gone too damn far. That's what a group of more than 36 lawmakers argued in a letter urging the Biden administration to change federal laws that allow law enforcement to access sensitive medical data. And notably, that including abortion records, all without a warrant. With this letter coming in response to a proposed update under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, aka HIPAA. And specifically an update that would require law enforcement to include a written certification in its request for certain protected health information, vowing that the data would not be used in certain ways. But the lawmakers say that the Biden administration needs to go further and ensure that Americans' protected health information for all categories of medical care receive the same protections that emails and location data already receive, and adding that the changes are necessary in order to protect Americans from warrantless government surveillance. The letter specifically noted, although doctors cannot be forced to testify about their patients' medical conditions in courts across the country, patient records containing the same information can be subpoenaed by law enforcement agencies without showing probable cause of a crime and without oversight by an independent judge. So with that, the group's asking Biden to require law enforcement to obtain a warrant in order to get protected health information from doctors, pharmacists, and other medical providers, arguing that requiring a warrant for this information is consistent with the protections afforded to other sensitive data under federal law and the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. Also pointing out that law enforcement's already required to have a warrant to wiretap someone's phone calls, obtain their emails and text messages, or track their phone's location. Beyond all that, the letter also calls on the administration to require warrants for protected health info to prevent those records from being shared with fusion centers, government surveillance clearinghouses, or other law enforcement agencies unless necessary. Plus, they're requesting that patients be notified when their medical data is shared with law enforcement. And while obviously this applies to a wide range of protected medical data, this letter is coming amid increased concerns about the surveillance of abortion seekers specifically. And that's not just limited to warrantless surveillance of medical records and information. In fact, the same day lawmakers sent this letter, a damning new report was published detailing how people who travel across state lines to get abortions or gender-affirming care face an increased threat of surveillance and criminalization from law enforcement. And that report, which was published by the advocacy group, the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, it showed just how many data points law enforcement can use to track people who travel out of state to get abortions, with a senior researcher explaining that traditionally lawyers prosecuting abortions have drawn from cell phone data, but also adding, even in the absence of cell phone data, it is shockingly and scarily easy to track people's trips to gender-affirming care clinics and to abortion clinics, with them pulling from a number of different sources such as vehicle information from private car or rideshare apps, flight records, street cameras, ticket information, automatic license plate readers, among others. And the organization's executive director saying every hotel reservation and bridge toll will just be one subpoena away from being used against a patient in court. And the report also warning that digital surveillance data makes profiling easy and suggests that travel data will be weaponized to identify new targets for healthcare prosecutions and investigations. And importantly, all of this is coming as anti-abortion states are increasing their efforts to prosecute people who leave the state to get an abortion where it is legal. So this is a very big deal, something we're going to have to keep our eyes on, and unfortunately in the meantime, we know Big Brother's going to be doing the same. And then, the other shoe just dropped for 16 fake electors in Michigan, with Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel yesterday charging 16 Republicans who falsely claimed to be the presidential electors in 2020 in an effort to get Trump elected in the state. And the charges they are looking at are hefty, with Nessel slapping all 16 with 8 criminal counts including forgery, conspiracy to commit forgery, and election law forgery, some of which carry sentences of up to 14 years in prison. So I imagine not fun news for any of these 16, but especially Meshawn Maddock, who back in May joked about not being arrested, saying, "Dems waiting for my arrest." Also, the details in this story are very interesting, because specifically, court documents released after the charges were announced detail how the 16 Republicans met and filled out paperwork claiming that they were Michigan's official electors and that Trump had won the election. This, of course, despite the fact that Biden had actually won the state by 150,000 votes, courts had already thrown out lawsuits that claimed that Trump had won, and leaders in the legislature had made it clear they would not challenge the results further. But still, the fake Trump electors tried to go to the state capitol on December 14th of 2020, the day every state met and cast their vote for president. But of course, they were blocked by police because the real electors who had literally been certified by the state were already there doing their jobs. But even then, the Trump electors claimed that they were the true electors who had met at the state capitol. And it wasn't just a verbal claim. Nessel also said yesterday that the 16 Republicans actually submitted paperwork to the Senate, National Archives, and other entities making this bullshit claim, which, who could have guessed it, turned out is in fact a crime. And understand, these criminal charges are especially significant because the 16 Trump electors in Michigan weren't the only idiots who tried to pull this stunt. Right? Michigan is just one of 7 swing states that Biden won where Republicans filed paperwork claiming to be the true electors for their states. And also, Michigan isn't the only state to have launched an investigation into those actions, with probes still ongoing in Arizona and Georgia, alongside additional civil lawsuits against the fake electors in Wisconsin as well as Michigan. And while of course we're gonna have to wait to see how all this plays out, very key thing, while the Michigan probe that resulted in the charges we're talking about today mostly focused on the fake Trump electors, it's possible that it could expand beyond that, with Nessel saying yesterday, "This remains an ongoing investigation and our department has not ruled out potential charges against additional defendants." But yeah, in shocking news, someone might actually be held accountable. And then, Vladimir Putin is a little bitch. Or to put it another way, South Africa just avoided an international crisis after convincing Putin to just stay home, because little boy Vladdy was supposed to be traveling to the country for the upcoming BRICS summit. But there was the itty-bitty problem of that whole international criminal court arrest warrant for him, because South Africa is obligated under treaties to execute that warrant if Putin shows up, which obviously put the government in a weird spot, where they either don't arrest him and get in trouble with every other country that follows the ICC, or they do arrest him and then deal with Russia likely not being a fan of that. With South Africa's president even speaking on this and saying, Russia has made it clear that arresting its sitting president would be a declaration of war. It would be inconsistent with our constitution to risk engaging in war with Russia. Now with that, Russia has denied that it threatened war, although the statement from a Kremlin spokesperson really isn't that much better, saying it's clear to everyone what that kind of infringement against the head of the Russian state would mean. And so with South Africa seemingly having no good solution, for a while it seemed like they were just leaning towards letting Putin attend. But then that hit a speed bump as the main opposition party went to court to try and compel the government to arrest Putin if he arrived. However, all this ended up getting dodged because Putin agreed to stay home and instead send Foreign Minister Lavrov, which could end up being a big deal because it takes away Putin getting FaceTime with leaders of Brazil, India, China, and South Africa. Though of course, he will be zooming in, something he probably finds less than ideal, especially because he wants to meet with major economic partners, with China and India especially really propping up Russia's international trade right now. But that is where your daily dive into the news is going to end today. But of course, remember, for more news you need to know, I got you covered right here on those links down below. And for those who have already watched everything, remember, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
Hey everybody, so with this story I'm going to try something new. At the end of the video I'm going to include a segment where I discuss